In the crowded alien marketplace on the mining moon of Solara, bright neon lights flickered above rows of traders shouting their prices. Humans were rare here, and when one appeared, all eyes followed. Among the stalls filled with metals and crystals, a small alien girl sat quietly, her hands trembling as she arranged a few broken toys on a cloth. Her skin glowed faintly blue, her large eyes reflecting both fear and hope. Her name was Leary, and today she had come to sell the only things she had left, her childhood toys. People walked past her, laughing or ignoring her completely. To them, she was just a poor orphan from the lower colonies, but inside, her heart raced with one desperate thought. Her mother was sick, dying, and the medicine cost more than their home. The clinic on Solara demanded credits she could never earn, so Leary had packed her toys, small wooden carvings of human starships, handmade dolls, and a music cube that still played a broken tune, hoping someone, anyone, would buy them. Hours passed and no one stopped. Her throat burned from calling out to passing strangers. Just when she was about to give up, a shadow fell over her stall. A tall human man stood there, his uniform dusty from travel, his eyes calm but kind. He looked down at the toys, then at her. "How much for this?" he asked softly, picking up the small music cube. Leary's voice shook. "It's old but still works, human. Please take it for 5 credits. He frowned slightly. 5 credits? That's too cheap." Her eyes widened in fear, thinking he would walk away. "Please, I only need money for medicine. My mother." The human crouched down, his gaze gentle. "Medicine?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, she's very sick. They said she won't live another cycle if I don't buy the cure." The human's jaw tightened, something deep in his expression changing. He pulled out a small pouch and placed it on the ground before her. "Keep the toys," he said. "And take this." Leary stared, confused. "But that's too much, I can't." He smiled slightly. "You can and you will, it's for your mother." When she opened the pouch, her hands shook. It was full of shining credit chips, more than enough for the cure. Her voice broke. "Why? Why would a human help me?" He stood up slowly, his shadow tall against the glowing market lights. "Because once someone helped me too," he said quietly, and turned to leave. But before he could disappear into the crowd, a group of alien thugs blocked his path. They had been watching, and greed flashed in their eyes. "That's a lot of credits for a worthless child," one hissed. "Hand it over, human." The market went silent. Leary froze, her heart pounding. The human sighed, stepping slightly forward, his tone calm but cold. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he warned. The leader sneered. "Or what, human? You'll fight us over trash?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he pressed a small device on his wrist. In an instant, a silent shimmer rippled through the air. An energy field surrounded him. Glowing faintly blue, the thugs stepped back. Realizing too late who they were dealing with, one whispered in fear, "Terran Fleet." "He's one of them." Leary's eyes widened. The stories flooding her mind, tales of humans, the warriors from the death worlds, the ones who had ended galactic wars. The thugs ran, disappearing into the crowd, leaving only silence behind. The human turned back, his expression soft again. "Go home, little one," he said, "and tell your mother the humans still keep their promises." Then he walked away into the neon mist, his ship waiting beyond the horizon. Leary held the pouch to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She whispered to the empty air, "Thank you, human." And in that moment, under the flickering lights of the alien market, hope returned to her small heart. The lights of the Solara market faded behind Leary as she ran through the narrow metallic streets, clutching the pouch close to her chest. Every echo of her footsteps felt loud in the silent alleys, her heart beating fast with both fear and hope. When she finally reached the small metal door of their home, she stopped to catch her breath. Inside, her mother lay weak on a thin bed, her pale skin glowing faintly, her breathing shallow and uneven. "Mother," Leary whispered, tears in her eyes, "I got the money, the medicine. We can save you now." Her mother slowly opened her eyes, voice weak but soft. "Leary, how did you?" Leary smiled through her tears. "A human helped me. He gave me all this," she said, showing the pouch. The mother's eyes widened in shock. "A human?" she whispered, her voice trembling. She grabbed her daughter's hand with sudden strength. Leary, you must listen carefully, humans. They are not what the others say. They are powerful, dangerous, and kind in ways our people never understood. Before Leary could ask more, the lights outside flickered red. Warning alarms echoed through the colony. From the outer streets came the sound of boots and engines, the metallic whine of ships landing. Leary looked out the small window and froze. Soldiers from the Syndicate Guard were sweeping the area, weapons drawn. The guards were not here for her, but for him, the human who had helped her. A voice boomed from a hover speaker above the colony. Attention citizens, a Terran operative has violated Syndicate law. Report all contact immediately. Leary's heart sank. She looked back at her mother, who struggled to sit up. Leary, that man, he put himself in danger for us. Tears filled the girl's eyes again. But why? Why would he risk everything? Her mother's gaze softened. Because humanity still remembers compassion, something the Syndicate lost long ago. Leary felt torn. She wanted to stay, to protect her mother, but a voice inside her whispered that she couldn't let the man who saved them be caught. Outside, shadows moved between the alleys. The human, known only as Captain Ryan, walked quietly, his cloak pulled over his uniform, his wrist device flickering with faint signals. He knew they would come. The Syndicate never tolerated humans helping aliens from the lower rings. He stopped near a dark wall, opening a small holographic panel. Command, this is Ryan, extraction point compromised, requesting alternate route. Static answered him, then silence. He muttered under his breath. Of course, cut off again. Suddenly, a small figure appeared from the shadows. It was Leary, her eyes wide and glowing in the dim light. He frowned. You shouldn't be here. She shook her head stubbornly. They're coming for you, human. You helped us. Now I'll help you. He sighed softly, looking down at the small alien child standing against soldiers and fear. You're brave, Leary, he said, but this isn't your fight. She pointed down the alley. There's an old cargo tunnel beneath the refinery. Nobody goes there anymore. You can hide there. For a moment, he hesitated, then nodded. They ran through the narrow corridors, the air filled with dust and the sound of distant engines. Behind them, the shouts of the Syndicate soldiers grew louder, lights flashing through the streets. When they reached the old tunnel gate, Leary pulled out a small control key she had taken from the marketplace junk stall long ago. To Ryan's surprise, she hacked the door open in seconds, the metal grinding aside with a sharp hiss. You're full of surprises, he said with a faint smile. Leary blushed slightly. You helped me first. As they stepped inside, a light flashed. Drones hovered overhead, scanning the alley. Go, she whispered urgently. I'll close it behind you. But he stopped, turning toward her. No, you're coming with me. Before she could reply, a voice roared from behind. There! The human and the child! Laser beams sliced the air as the soldiers fired. Ryan pushed Leary behind a crate and raised his wrist. A shimmering blue shield spread around them, the blasts deflecting harmlessly. He drew a compact plasma sidearm and returned fire, his movements calm, precise, deadly. One by one, the drones and soldiers fell, sparks lighting up the dark tunnel. When the last soldier hit the ground, silence filled the air again. Ryan turned, breathing steadily, and looked at Leary. Are you hurt? She shook her head, but her eyes were wide in awe. You fought like the heroes from the old stories. He smiled faintly. Humans just don't like bullies, he said, reloading his weapon. Then looking toward the dark tunnel ahead, he whispered, But this isn't over yet. As they disappeared into the shadows, the distant hum of engines grew louder above. The Syndicate fleet was mobilizing, and someone high above had just marked both of them as fugitives. The price of kindness had been set, and now both the human warrior and the alien girl were running from a galaxy that feared compassion. The tunnels under Zalara stretched like the veins of an ancient beast, dark, humid, and filled with the faint hum of machinery. Leary followed behind the human, clutching a small light crystal that flickered with every breath of the tunnel air. Captain Ryan moved silently, scanning the shadows with his wrist device, each movement calm but sharp. The silence between them was heavy. Only the sound of dripping water and their slow footsteps echoed. Where does this tunnel lead? Ryan asked quietly. To the outer docks, Leary whispered. Old smuggler routes. No guards there anymore. He nodded. Good, we'll find a ship and leave before the syndicate locks down the colony. As they walked, Leary looked up at him, her small voice breaking the silence. You knew they'd come for you, didn't you? Ryan gave a faint, tired smile. Helping someone in syndicate space is always a crime. She frowned. That's not fair. He chuckled softly. Fairness doesn't exist out here, little one. Only choices. Before she could answer, a sharp, metallic screech echoed through the tunnel. Something was moving fast. Ryan's hand shot up, signaling her to hide behind a crate. He activated his visor. Red dots appeared on the map display, closing in from both ends. Drones, he muttered. They found us. The first drone burst through the darkness, its red eyes glowing like fire, spinning blasters charging. Ryan fired 2 quick shots. The drone exploded in sparks, but more followed. Dozens this time, crawling through the ceiling vents, wings slicing the air. Stay down, he shouted, as he hurled a flash grenade, the explosion lighting the tunnel like daylight. The blast tore through the drones, scattering debris, but the sound carried far. Leary covered her ears, shaking. They'll know where we are now. I know, Ryan replied. We need to move fast. They sprinted down the tunnel, the ground shaking as something massive landed behind them. A syndicate walker. The mechanical beast rose on 6 legs, its cannons glowing with charged plasma. Ryan cursed under his breath, grabbing Leary and diving behind a broken rail car. The blast scorched the tunnel wall, heat washing over them. He glanced at the girl. You trust me? She nodded without hesitation. Yes, human. Good, he said, pulling a small capsule from his belt. Then hold on tight. He threw the capsule forward. It burst, releasing a wave of smoke and EMP energy. The walker convulsed, its sensors flickering, and Ryan used the moment to run, carrying Leary toward a service ladder ahead. They climbed fast, reaching a hatch that opened into an abandon. At cargo bay, Ryan sealed the hatch and took a deep breath. That should slow them down. Leary looked around. Dozens of old containers and half-broken ships filled the area. One of them, a small freighter, still had power. She pointed. That one still works. Ryan checked the ID code and froze. The ship's tag read, Artemis 5. He whispered to himself, No way. This ship shouldn't be here. Leary tilted her head. You know it? He nodded slowly. This was a Terran medical vessel, lost during the Syndicate purge. They entered the freighter. Dust filled the air, but the lights flickered alive as the system recognized a human signature. Ryan's face hardened. This ship was delivering medical supplies before it disappeared. He checked the cargo logs, and then his eyes widened. Inside the main hold were crates marked with the Terran crest, labeled Project E13, antiviral compound, classified. Leary stepped closer, reading the faded markings. That symbol, it's the same one on the medicine my mother needed. Ryan froze, turning to her. What did you just say? The clinic said my mother's cure was human-made, she whispered. From something called Project E13. Ryan's expression darkened. He finally understood. Your mother isn't just sick, Leary, he said quietly. She's dying because the Syndicate used her species for experiments with human medicine. Leary's eyes filled with tears. They made her sick? He nodded. They tested the cure, then banned it. To hide what they did. Her voice trembled. And you helped me because you knew? He shook his head slowly. I didn't know who you were, but now I see why fate sent me here. Before they could speak again, the ship's alarm blared. A transmission cut through the static. Attention rogue Terran and alien miner, surrender immediately, the voice commanded, cold and metallic. A holographic insignia appeared. The mark of the Syndicate Inquisitor, the one who commanded the hunters. Ryan looked at Leary, his eyes calm but fierce. They've found us, he said, and this time their breed. Ninging everything. The freighter's engines roared as he powered them on, dust swirling through the bay. Outside, Syndicate dropships descended, their lights flooding the metal walls. Leary gripped his arm, her voice shaking. We can't fight all of them. Ryan smiled faintly, his hand on the throttle. Who said anything about fighting? He looked at her with quiet determination. We're going to the stars. To find the truth. The Artemis V lifted from the ground, engines blazing. Behind them, the Syndicate base erupted in chaos as drones and ships chased into the night sky. But ahead, the blackness of space opened wide. Silent, endless, and full of secrets yet to be told. The Artemis V sliced through the black sea of space, engines burning blue against the stars. Inside the ship, silence filled the narrow corridors, broken only by the low hum of the reactor. Leary sat near the viewport, her small hands pressed against the glass, staring at the endless darkness that stretched beyond. She had never left Solara before, never seen the stars so close. Now she was flying beside a human, hunted by the Syndicate, with nothing left but hope. Captain Ryan stood at the control deck, his face lit by the glow of the ship's console. He was quiet, focused, eyes darting between the blinking alerts and the coordinates on the holoscreen. The Artemis V was old, but its Terran design was strong, the kind built to last through wars and silence alike. Are we safe now? Leary asked softly, her voice small in the wide emptiness. Ryan didn't answer right away, his hand tightening on the lever. Safe? For now, maybe, he said at last, but the Syndicate never stops. He tapped a command on the console, and a holographic file appeared in the air. Sealed Terran data, glowing with red encryption marks, the words Project E13 flashed across the screen. Leary watched, confused. That's what was on the medicine crates, she said. Ryan nodded slowly. Yes, and now we'll see what they were hiding. He entered an old command code, and after a moment the file opened. A woman's voice filled the room, calm but full of sorrow. This is Dr. May Solon, Terran Medical Corps, recording log E13. The hologram flickered, showing a woman in a white uniform, the stars of Terran space visible behind her. Our mission was to cure the viral outbreak spreading across multiple colonies, she said. We found a solution, a genetic compound that could adapt to alien biology. Leary's eyes widened as she listened. That's my mother's illness, she whispered. The doctor's image continued. But the Syndicate intercepted our research, twisted it into something darker. They tested it on living beings. Ryan's jaw tightened. They turned medicine into a weapon. The hologram flickered again, showing a map of Syndicate test worlds, Solara among them. Final message, Dr. Solon said, her voice trembling. If this data is found, deliver it to the Terran High Command. Tell them the Syndicate has committed biological crimes against sentient species. The image faded, leaving only silence. Leary turned to Ryan, her voice trembling. My mother. She was one of their victims. Ryan nodded, eyes cold with anger. They wanted to see how far human medicine could go, and when it worked too well, they destroyed the proof. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Then we have to show everyone. We have to tell the galaxy what they did. Ryan's voice was calm but heavy. We will, Leary, but it won't be easy. Suddenly the ship shook violently, alarms blaring through the deck. Enemy lock-on detected, the computer announced. Through the viewport, flashes of red appeared. Syndicate hunters had tracked them, fast attack ships closing in like wolves. Ryan swore under his breath. They brought interceptors. He threw the ship into a hard turn, stars spinning around them, the engines screaming. Leary grabbed the seat rail, her voice rising. They're too many. He smiled faintly. They always are. He switched the Artemis V to manual control, the old ship dancing through the debris field of an ancient battle zone. Explosions lit the dark void, metal wrecks drifting like ghosts around them. A Syndicate hunter fired, plasma bolts grazing the ship's hull, sparks flying across the cabin. Leary cried out, "We'll crash!" Ryan's voice was steady. Not today. He flipped a switch on the console. The Artemis V's engines glowed brighter, a hidden Terran drive activating for the first time in years. A blinding blue pulse erupted behind them, sending the Syndicate ship spinning out of control. When the light faded, they were gone. The stars ahead looked different, sharper, clearer, almost unfamiliar. "We jumped through a grav rift," Ryan said quietly. "They won't follow us here." Leary looked out the window, her voice soft with awe. "It's beautiful." Ryan nodded, but his face was serious. "This place is uncharted space, old Terran roads, long forgotten." He stood up and walked to the ship's side compartment, opening a small box marked with the Terran fleet symbol. Inside were dog tags, a photo of a smiling woman, and a faded letter. Leary peeked curiously. "Who is she?" Ryan's eyes softened. "My wife," he said quietly. "She was a doctor, part of the E-13 team. She died when the Syndicate attacked." Leary gasped. "She was the one in the recording." He nodded slowly. "Yes. Dr. May Solon was her name." For a long moment there was silence, the ship drifting among forgotten stars. Finally, Leary spoke, her voice firm. "Then we finish what she started. We save my mother, and we show the truth." Ryan smiled faintly, proud and sad at once. "You sound just like her." He looked at the nav panel, setting a new course. "There's an old Terran outpost in this region. If its course still works, we can send the data to Earth." As the Artemis 5 changed direction, a faint light appeared in the distance. The outpost, half buried in cosmic dust, glowing like a ghost in the dark. Neither of them noticed the small tracker blinking red beneath the hull. Far away, in the command ship of the Syndicate Inquisitor, a cold voice whispered, "They're heading for the ruins. Prepare the intercept." And once again, the hunt was about to begin. But this time, the truth was finally within reach. The Artemis 5 glided through the dark expanse until a faint silver light shimmered ahead. An ancient Terran outpost floated near the edge of a dying star, its metal body cracked, its lights flickering like a heartbeat long forgotten. Leary pressed her face against the viewport, eyes wide with wonder and fear. "It's still there," she whispered. "After all these years." Captain Ryan nodded slowly, his voice low. "Outpost Epsilon 9, one of the first Terran research stations, sealed after the Syndicate Wars." As the ship approached, broken satellites drifted nearby like old ghosts, their panels reflecting the dim glow of the sun. Ryan activated the docking sequence, the old clamps groaning as the Artemis 5 latched onto the airlock. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a soft hiss as the pressure equalized. He turned to Leary, fastening a light shield around her wrist. "Stay close to me. There's no telling what's still active in there." They stepped into the outpost, boots echoing on metal floors covered in dust. Dim emergency lights blinked red along the corridor walls, casting long shadows. Leary shivered. "It feels like a tomb." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. Every Terran outpost became a tomb after the Syndicate came. They reached the command chamber where a circular console still glowed weakly. Ryan brushed off the dust and inserted his Terran ident chip, the system humming to life. The lights flickered, once, then brightened, and a voice echoed through the room, calm and familiar. "Welcome, Captain Ryan Solon. Authentication confirmed." Leary gasped softly. "That voice. It sounds like her." Ryan's eyes softened. "That's because it is," he whispered. "The AI core was modeled after my wife's neural imprint." The hologram appeared, a faint image of Dr. May Solon smiling gently, her projection flickering like a fading star. "Ryan," the hologram said softly, "if you are seeing this, then the E-13 project has resurfaced." Leary stepped closer, tears filling her eyes. "Dr. May, you tried to save us." The hologram turned toward her, recognizing her alien pattern instantly. "You must be one of the trial survivors," the voice said kindly. "I am so sorry for what the Syndicate did to your people." Ryan clenched his fists, pain and love mixing in his eyes. "May, the Syndicate used your cure to infect them instead." The hologram lowered her head. "Then they have completed their betrayal." She looked at both of them, her tone steady. "But hope still exists. The final cure lies within this outpost's vault, hidden inside the main reactor." Leary's eyes lit with hope. "Then we can save my mother." The hologram hesitated, her expression turning grave. The vault is protected by an autonomous defense system. Only a Terran captain can disable it. But if the Syndicate followed you here, they will destroy everything. Before Ryan could respond, the outpost shuddered violently, alarms blaring through the metal halls. From the viewport behind them, bright red flashes filled the void. Syndicate destroyers had arrived. They found us, Ryan muttered, drawing his sidearm. The hologram spoke quickly. Ryan, take the child to the reactor core. I'll open the path, but hurry. The corridors lit up with emergency lights as they ran, the AI guiding them through crumbling passages behind Tao and Salma. Metal doors slammed shut, sealing off sections of the station as Syndicate troops stormed in. Leary stumbled but kept running, her small voice trembling. Why do they want to stop us so badly? Because truth is more dangerous than any weapon, Ryan said, his tone like iron. They reached the reactor chamber, a vast glowing cylinder pulsing with blue light. At its base stood a control pedestal locked by an energy field. Ryan placed his ident chip inside the slot, his voice steady. Captain Ryan Solin, override code Echo 9. The reactor hummed, light bursting upward as the vault opened, revealing a crystalline capsule inside. Inside the capsule floated shimmering golden liquid, the true cure, the original E13 formula. Leary's eyes filled with tears. That's it. That's the medicine that can save my mother. Ryan smiled faintly. And every other soul the Syndicate hurt. But before they could take it, a beam of red energy cut through the floor. Syndicate soldiers had breached the chamber. The Inquisitor himself stepped through the smoke, his armor black and silver, his voice cold. You humans never learn, he sneered. Compassion is weakness. Ryan stepped in front of Leary, raising his weapon. No, it's what makes us human. The Inquisitor laughed. You think one act of mercy can change the galaxy? Ryan's voice hardened. It already has. He activated his wrist console. The reactor lights surged, the vault's failsafe charging. The Inquisitor shouted, What are you doing? Ryan met his gaze calmly. Finishing what we started. A massive pulse of light erupted from the reactor, energy waves spreading through the outpost, disabling all Syndicate weapons. The Inquisitor screamed as his armor systems collapsed. Leary clung to Ryan, eyes wide as the entire station began to quake. The AI's voice echoed through the shaking walls. Ryan, the outpost will collapse. You must escape, now. He grabbed the capsule and pulled Leary toward the exit, the corridors crumbling around them, fire and debris falling from above. They reached the docking bay just as the struct exploded behind them. The Artemis V broke free into the stars, engines blazing through the shockwave. Behind them, the outpost vanished in a burst of light, scattering fragments like falling stars. Leary stared at the fading glow, whispering, She saved us again. Ryan nodded quietly, his eyes misty. She always does. In his hands, the glowing capsule pulsed softly. The cure for millions, proof of the Syndicate's crimes, and a chance for redemption. But somewhere in the shadows of space, something even greater was watching. Waiting. The Artemis V drifted through the emptiness of space, scarred but alive. Inside its cabin, the faint hum of the reactor mixed with the sound of Leary's quiet breathing as she slept against the viewport. The golden capsule of the E13 cure glowed softly beside her, casting warm light across the room. Captain Ryan sat at the control deck, eyes heavy but focused, watching the stars roll by like rivers of silver fire. He had seen war before, but not like this. Now he carried not just orders or vengeance, but hope. A hope that had a name. Leary's mother, and all those suffering under the Syndicate's cold rule. When the ship's console beeped softly, Ryan leaned forward. An incoming message signal blinked, marked with an old Terran code. He hesitated before accepting it. The hollow screen flickered to life, revealing a woman in a battered uniform. Captain Ryan Solin, she said, her voice steady. This is Commander Hale of the Terran Vanguard. We received your signal. Ryan's heart lifted slightly. Commander, we have proof of Syndicate crimes and the original E13 cure. The woman's eyes widened. Then you've done more than anyone since the War of Silence. Send the data immediately. He uploaded the files, encrypted through the ship's ancient core. As the transmission sent, Hale's voice grew quiet. You're not alone out there, Captain. The rebellion's been waiting for something like this. Ryan glanced at Leary, who stirred slightly in her sleep. Then maybe it's time they met the reason we fight. Hours later, the ship landed on a hidden moon base, deep beneath the frozen surface of Arvin 3. The base glowed with soft light, filled with both humans and aliens working side by side. It was rare to see such unity in this part of the galaxy. When Leary stepped out of the ship, everyone stopped and stared, a small alien child holding the hope of millions. It was a sight none expected. Commander Hale approached, kneeling beside Leary. "You're the one who started this, aren't you?" she said gently. Leary blushed. "I just wanted to save my mother." Hale smiled. "Sometimes the smallest reason creates the biggest change." She turned to Ryan. "The data you sent is spreading already. Dozens of worlds are revolting against Syndicate control." Ryan nodded. "Good, but they'll strike back soon. The Inquisitor survived the blast." A sudden alarm cut through the air, red lights flashing. An officer shouted, "Multiple Syndicate warships entering orbit." Ryan's voice was calm but sharp. "They followed us again." He turned to Hale. "Get the civilians underground. I'll take the Artemis 5 back into orbit. We can draw them away." Hale protested. "You can't take them alone." He smiled faintly. "Humans don't do alone, Commander." Leary grabbed his sleeve, her eyes wide. "I'm coming with you." Ryan shook his head. "It's too dangerous." She looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "You said compassion isn't weakness. It's what makes us human. Let me help." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, partner, let's finish this together." Minutes later, the Artemis 5 roared back into the black sky, engines burning like blue fire. Above the moon, Syndicate destroyers filled the stars. Hundreds of ships forming a blockade. Ryan's hands moved across the controls, calm and precise. "Activating stealth grid," he said. "Leary, hold tight." The small girl sat beside him, eyes fixed on the SWY. "Grilling lights outside." "Are we going to fight them all?" she asked. Ryan smiled softly. "No, we're going to show them something they forgot. What humans do when they're pushed too far." He transmitted a signal through open space, a frequency carrying the stolen files of E13, the images of the dying and the crimes of the Syndicate. Within seconds, hundreds of channels lit up across the galaxy, every broadcast replaced with the same message. The truth was no longer a secret. Every world saw what the Syndicate had done. Every colony heard the human voice that defied them. Down on Arvin 3, Commander Hale stared at the screens, tears in her eyes. "They did it," she whispered. "They freed the truth." Across distant worlds, alien workers threw down Syndicate banners, rebellions erupted, and old alliances reignited. The galaxy began to burn with the fire of justice, but in the skies above, the Syndicate fleet turned their guns toward the Artemis 5. The Inquisitor's ship loomed ahead, massive and black, its voice echoing across the comms. "You cannot change the order of the galaxy, human." Ryan smiled grimly. "Order built on fear always falls." He pulled a lever on the console, activating the Artemis's last defense. "Leary, remember this?" he said softly. "Sometimes one act of kindness can start a war for freedom." The ship's reactor flared bright blue, energy waves spreading outward in every direction. The Syndicate sensors scrambled, their ships spinning in confusion. In that brief moment, the Rebellion's fleets emerged from warp. Terran dreadnoughts, alien cruisers, and freedom ships united for the first time in centuries. Leary gasped, "They came." Ryan nodded, a rare smile on his face. They heard the echo. The stars lit with battle fire, lasers and missiles cutting across the void, the soundless storm of liberation beginning, and at its heart, a small ship carrier, a child and a man, proof that compassion could defy an empire. The stars burned with warfire as the great battle for freedom raged across the skies. Terran dreadnoughts and alien cruisers fought side by side, their weapons carving light into the darkness. The Syndicate fleet, once feared across 1,000 worlds, now trembled under the weight of unity it could never understand. And at the heart of it all, the small ship Artemis 5 weaved through chaos like a ghost, carrying the spark that had set the galaxy ablaze. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed and sparks fell from the ceiling. Leary clung to her seat, eyes wide with both fear and courage. Captain Ryan's hands moved swiftly across the controls, his voice calm even as the ship shook under enemy fire. "They're targeting the rebellion flagship," he said. "We can't let them destroy it." He looked at her and smiled. "Ready to make history, kid?" Leary nodded, gripping the glowing capsule that held the E-13 cure. "Let's save everyone." They dived straight toward the Syndicate command cruiser, the Inquisitor's massive flagship, black as midnight and shaped like a blade. "Stay low. Stay unseen," Ryan whispered, guiding the ship through debris and fire. When they reached the underbelly of the cruiser, he flipped a hidden switch, activating the ship's Terran stealth core. The Artemis V vanished from radar, drifting silently toward a docking bay filled with Syndicate soldiers. The hatch opened with a hiss. Ryan stepped out first, weapon drawn, moving like a shadow. Leary followed, clutching a small transmitter that pulsed softly with light. "This will send the cure to every medical unit in the galaxy once connected," Ryan said. "Guard it with your life." She nodded firmly. "I will." They fought their way through narrow corridors, every blast echoing off the steel walls. The Syndicate soldiers were skilled, but they were afraid of a legend come to life. Ryan moved like thunder, his plasma blade cutting through the air with precision. Leary stayed close, ducking behind fallen crates, her small fingers working quickly on the transmitter. She linked it into the ship's power grid, and the device began to hum, light spreading through the floor like veins of gold. Far across space, every rebel ship received the same signal, a beam of hope carrying the E-13 cure, unlocking healing systems across hundreds of worlds. On Solara, deep in a quiet medical ward, a weak alien woman stirred in her sleep. Her breathing steadied, color returned to her skin, and when her eyes opened, tears fell down her face. She whispered faintly, "Leary." Back on the cruiser, Ryan and Leary reached the command bridge. The Inquisitor stood waiting, his armor cracked, his voice filled with fury. "You think one child and one broken human can destroy an empire?" he roared. Ryan stood tall, eyes blazing. "Not destroy," he said. "Replace it with something better." The Inquisitor raised his weapon, but Leary stepped forward, holding the transmitter high. "You hurt my mother," she said softly. "You hurt millions, but humans taught me mercy." The device flashed bright, releasing a pulse of energy that swept across the bridge. The Inquisitor's armor froze, his systems collapsing as the transmitter overloaded the ship's core. "Ryan!" Leary cried as the ship began to shake violently, alarms blaring. He grabbed her hand and ran toward the hangar, explosions tearing through the walls. The Artemis V roared to life just as the command cruiser exploded behind them, a starburst of light filling the darkness. Outside, the rebel fleet cheered as the Syndicate flagship shattered into pieces. The transmission from Ryan's ship spread across all frequencies. "The Syndicate has fallen. The cure has been released. Every corner of the galaxy heard it. Every heart that once feared now dared to hope." Hours later, the Artemis V landed once again on Solara. Leary jumped out and ran into the medical center, tears streaming down her face. Her mother sat up weak but smiling, arms open wide. "Leary," she whispered, voice trembling. "You came back." Leary threw herself into her embrace, sobbing. "We did it, Mother. The humans saved everyone." Ryan stood quietly at the doorway, watching the reunion, a rare softness in his eyes. When Leary's mother looked up at him, she whispered, "You're one of the Death Worlders, aren't you?" He smiled faintly. "Just a man who remembers what it means to care." Days passed, and across the galaxy, a new alliance began to rise. Humans and aliens rebuilding together, sharing knowledge, sharing trust. The old banners of the Syndicate were torn down, replaced by the emblem of unity. A human hand holding a child's star toy. Leary kept that same toy on her bedside table, the one she once tried to sell to buy medicine. Now it was a symbol of how one act of kindness changed the fate of countless worlds. On a quiet hill above Solara, Rian looked up at the twin moons, his voice calm. "May," he whispered to the stars, "we did it." A soft breeze blew through the night, carrying the faint sound of her voice, the echo of hope. And beside him, Leary smiled, eyes filled with light. "Do you think humans and aliens will always stay together now?" she asked. Ryan nodded slowly. If they remember why we fight, yes, they will. The camera of the universe pulled back, showing the galaxy shining brighter than before, a galaxy reborn not from conquest or war, but from mercy, from compassion, from one small girl who sold her toys to save her mother's life, and from one human who decided to help. Together, they had rewritten the stars.